Welcome to the 4th season of the Coaching Cast, your working from home managers club. Regardless of where you're working right now, at home, in the office, or a blend of both, or whatever you do as a career, we've got something for you at the Coaching Cast. I'm Susie, sales and business coach at Future You Business Coaching, currently taking on my hardest coaching assignment to date, parenting a 2-year-old who doesn't take too kindly to being questioned.
And I'm Lisa, founder of Grip Corporate Coaching, personal performance coach, leader, and chief eye roller when it comes to all nonsensical corporate mumbo jumbo which suffocates rather than advocates.
In this podcast, we explore all things work related, matters impacting you at work right now, presenting different topics each episode, which we will discuss with some special guests along the way, sharing ideas, hints, and tips for you to take away and try for yourself. We hope you enjoy listening. Today we're talking about how to ask for what you want at work, whether that's a pay rise, a promotion, flexible working, extra holiday, help with a project. The list goes on and on. So stay with us and enjoy. So before we get into this week's episode, Lisa, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm recovering from a busy few days. Valentine's Day was yesterday, so I'm recovering from Valentine's Day as well. So we had a busy day. It was good. It was fun. It was a Monday, so we did do a little bit of work in the morning, but we gave ourselves the afternoon off and the evening to indulge in a combination, actually, of mutual love. So we did go out for dinner last night.
Right.
That doesn't sound as dodgy as I meant it to.
I was going to say, that sounds quite dodge.
No, it was.
Where are we going with this story?
It was too hot here for any of that yesterday. But we did go out for a really nice meal yesterday, which was really fun. But I also indulged in some self-love yesterday. So I went and had a facial.
Ooh,
I know, fancy,
nice.
Fancy.
Fancy.
It's not fancy. So I don't generally have facials. I had a facial probably about 5 years ago, maybe now.
Okay.
As part of my pre-wedding preparation, I thought, I want my skin to look incredible on the day. So I thought I'd have a facial. It didn't really go to plan, I said facial, in that I think my skin was worse off afterwards. So my stepmother-in-law kindly bought me a voucher for her skin clinic here in Cape Town as a present for my birthday. And I thought, well, it's been a long time since I've had a facial. I'm in a different country. So I thought I'd go and check it out. So I had the facial yesterday and it was brilliant. I loved it. One thing I will say, and I have checked this with my stepmother-in-law, because I'm obviously not au fait with facials in the UK, but it was very thorough, and intense, I might add. But it involved having my eyebrows tidied up and my upper lip waxed, which is something I've never experienced before.
Oh, right. Wow. It was very thorough, wasn't it?
Yes. And I was lying there and she said, do you want me to tidy up your upper lip? I don't know what it is about being asked that sort of question, as in it's the kind of realization that, yes, maybe it is obvious to others that you have a shadow there. I mean, I have got very dark hair. It is a curse at times. So I was like, well, while you're there, you might as well. And out came the wax. And she was like, and I'm just going to tidy up your nasal hair. And I was like, my nasal hair? I was like, okay. I was thinking, oh my God, I don't think I'm prepared for this.
Yeah, this is like next level facial, isn't it?
Well, quite. And I was thinking, oh my God, she's going to take my nasal hairs out. And then it made me think of season 1 of this podcast.
Yes.
I'm talking to Mike Mayer.
Yes, absolutely.
Which episode? What is it? Like the 3rd episode?
It's the 3rd episode of season 1.
Yeah, talking about motivating yourself and others. And we brought on Mike to talk about the importance of, healthy breathing and how that contributes to good sleep. And he said about it's wrong to remove your nasal hair.
Yeah, he said, do not touch them bad boys. You leave them well alone.
But in a moment of, thinking of my, thinking what I appeared like, thinking about my appearance and maybe being a little bit vain. I was like, well, I don't want like big spidery nose hairs either. So out came those. No, I mean, she didn't take them all out. I've still got some nasal hairs left, I think. But she's took the ends off. But yeah, I mean, that was an experience.
Did it hurt?
Well, yeah, I mean, it made my eyes stink. I think they were watering. She kept going, are you all right? And I was like, yeah. But so interesting. So my upper lip feels pretty amazing. But now, obviously, I've got to maintain this because I'm not looking forward to the stubble because that's going to be uncomfortable, isn't it? I've already warned Dom, my husband. I was like, because he was like, right, you're going to have to keep this up now. I was like, yeah, I know. I mean, the beautician did reassure me it's not going to come back darker and thicker. But have you seen the hair on my head? It's like that everywhere. So my experience is the more you take out, the more grows back. So I'm going to look, call me Don Juan. I'm going to look like I've got a moustache, probably.
We're suddenly going to have an uptake in people who watch this on YouTube.
Yeah, because they're going to want to check out
new appearance.
So I'm going in for the close-up.
Oh, yeah, she really is on the camera there.
Fresh.
Fresh. Absolutely. Fresh as a baby, I'd say.
No shadows today.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, when you're on a screen a lot? Because obviously you and I do a lot of work on Zoom mainly, as do many of our CBBs, and you do end up kind of like looking at yourself a lot of the time because it's just you and your face, especially if you do training, which I do. Like you end up kind of looking at yourself a lot and you are a bit like, oh gosh, what just, I could just do with like a little bit of a reduction of the shadow here and a little bit of this there. It's really bad way to go, but no, well, I'm glad you're looking sharp, feeling good. We're on it.
Yeah,
and
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, going back. Good stuff. How did you spend your Valentine's Day?
Quite, and you've got big news.
I've got big news
to share with our CBBs. It's a step forward in the progressive growth of the coaching cast. We've gone up a level.
We've absolutely gone up a level. Stand back, CBBs, because I am excited to announce we've got merch.
Woo!
Woo! So anybody who is listening to us are probably like, what the hell is going on? So I have got a mug here, which has got the coaching cast written on it. So we've got some merch that we have started to develop and use. And alongside our mug, I've also got here, I don't know if you can see it on the screen because of the light and the camera, but I've got a little notepad here. And on it, it says one of our absolute favorite bullshit bingo lines, capturing hearts and minds. Because who doesn't want a bullshit bingo inspired notepad whilst they're working?
Exactly. So we've arrived. This podcast is escalating.
We're escalating, guys. It's
I've got merchandise. So if you're interested in having your own coaching cast mug or bullshit bingo pad, all you need to do is send us an email to hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk. and we'll send you some merchandise. Prices will apply, but
Yeah. Any influencers out there, big Instagram following who would like to showcase our merch on their Instagram page, please get in touch, as Lisa suggests. But no, all good. It's actually a really nice mug, I have to say. I was quite impressed when I got it. I was like, we've done quite a good job there. I quite like that. So yeah, big news this week in the world of the coaching cast. We've literally got merch. Also, I've had a week where my toddler has gone up a level in terms of sass. Don't know where he gets that from. Probably me. But Lisa and I had a call on Friday, didn't we, with our podcasting mentor extraordinaire, which we posted about on our Instagram page. And for those of you who follow us on Instagram, you've seen, had a little picture. We had a little guest with us, didn't we, during that conversation, which was my 2-year-old, because I look after him on a Friday. So he was with me, sat on my knee, causing absolute carnage on my desk. He broke my stapler. Like, I was gutted. I love my stapler. I use it all the time.
How did he do that?
Threw it on the floor.
Oh, the standard toddler move.
So anyway, the sass has gone up a level. So I took working mum to a whole new level on Friday, trying to have this professional, really good conversation with Lisa and our lovely podcasting mentor. And Arthur is just lobbing staplers around the place. But yeah, that sass, oh goodness me, it's keeping me on my toes this week. That is for sure. Which I think is an interesting segue into our topic today, which is about asking for what you want at work, which I think you can take inspo from a toddler any day on this one. So should we get into it?
Yes, with that tenuous link, let's go.
Let's go. On the 4th of February, the Bank of England governor advised workers that they should not ask for big pay rises at the moment to stop prices rising out of control. Now, one thing is for sure, Lisa and I are definitely not experts in economics, but this statement did get us thinking. How do you approach asking for what you want at work, and in a way which is authentic to you, as well as ensuring you are successful in your mission? When it comes to asking for what we want at work, many of us struggle to directly ask for it. We are afraid or embarrassed and often think, well, if I really deserve this thing, then they will offer it to me. And so we struggle biting the bullet and saying, here's what I want and why. Also, from my work in sales, the same principle can also be applied when communicating with customers or clients. So, Lisa, have you ever found yourself in this position at work?
So, I think it's really interesting because I love your comment that actually we're often afraid or embarrassed about asking for what we want. And I do agree in respect of that belief potentially that some of us have that actually, if they felt I was deserving of this, they would just give it to me. And that notion of recognition and wanting to have recognition for what you do, and not necessarily having to raise that as a request to people, as in like, have you not noticed what I've been doing? So I think for me, when I think about this topic, I think about one of my values that I want to move away from. So we've talked about values before in terms of values that you want to move towards, that you want more of in your life. Actually, we also have values we want to keep away from as well. And one of mine is rejection. So I know for a fact that often what stops me from asking for things that I want is the fact of receiving a no. And because no, I think we're all aware of, no is like the shortest, most powerful, impactful word I think that exists. It's 2 letters, but it can have such an impact. And it means so much, doesn't it? I mean, how do you trying to navigate a no? You know, when you think about it, it's tough. And that's actually what made me laugh when you mentioned Arthur there, your toddler, and the fact of when they're becoming really sassy and they're just like, no, you can't do much with that. So it kind of reminded me of that. But I think in terms of my experience of this, and I have to admit, this is where I start thinking about an approach where I feel comfortable to take it. You know, we don't all have the same style. We're not all really direct. And I don't think that is a bad thing. I do think sometimes there's this view that like we should all be, especially from a female perspective, I think this is really true. You know, we should all be more assertive and go-getters and confident and just take what we want. We should be more male. And actually, for some of us, that's just not our styles. And that's something that takes a bit of effort and practice to get into. And I know it is for me in certain contexts, and especially when it comes to things like money in work context. So the way in which I've found this works for me is actually thinking about, right, what do I really want to do? Like, what work do I want to do? What role do I want to play? What do I want to fill my day with more? How do I make that happen for myself? And then link that to monetary reward. Because for me, that's logic. It means that actually I'm taking the right approach and that I'm doing things I really want to do. And for me, that's really important. I don't just want to be paid loads of money to do something I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
Because it won't last. But if I approach it from that way and I start demonstrating the value I'm adding, then I can logically, in my mind, link that to cash. And that's the approach I take. So historically, when I've wanted more of anything, whether that be, as I said, a particular like responsibility or a particular task or a particular team or whatever it is, I've created opportunities within my role to do that, to make it happen. And so that's meant often, actually, I've taken quite a lot of sideways moves in my career, which I really couldn't encourage like people to do more of, like be flexible, be open-minded.
Yeah.
And actually those sideways moves have helped me to gradually move upwards and take on more responsibility. And at those points, they've been connected with higher reward, monetary wise. And for me, that's a way that I've been able to do it that's felt comfortable, that's felt authentic to me, because it's about me doing more of actually what I want to do and making my job feel more fulfilling. And then being able to logically link that to money so that I feel confident to justify that value. I think, as I said, does it take a bit more time potentially? You know, could I have got more quicker if I'd been more direct? Maybe. But I do think it's important to come back to your point that you stressed in the opening, which is how do you get what you want in a way that you feels authentic to you, that achieves what you want? And I think that is how, for me personally, I'm able to do that. And it helps me to like manage that, if you like, in some ways, that fear of the rejection.
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, actually, over the last couple of weeks when we've talked about values, when we've talked about self-belief. Actually, that's, I think, one of the strongest influences on me about potentially why I don't do certain things or why I get anxious about things. It is that rejection. So, yeah, that's kind of the way I was thinking about it. I mean, what about for you in your experience when this has happened, like when you've wanted something, you've wanted to make a change for yourself? Because as you said, it's not just about asking for more money. It could be actually just asking for more flexibility, asking for a different project, whatever. When you've wanted to something at work, how have you approached it?
Yeah, so I've been in a couple of instances in my career so far where I have asked for either something different or more of something, which has mainly been financially driven, the more kind of piece. So I have asked for a pay rise previously when I was in my corporate career, which I actually was successful in getting. And that is because I asked for it once I had already demonstrated the additional responsibility that would have come with that. So I felt a lot more confident. I already had proof points to show why that was needed.
Yeah.
If we all go in, we'd all love to earn more money. Let's be real about it. I absolutely would. It makes life, freer for everybody. More possibilities. It makes the world go round to an extent. But going in cold and just being like, I just like more money. Probably not the best approach, if I'm totally honest, in terms of getting that outcome. So for me in that situation, I wanted to prove to others and myself actually that I could do a role at a higher level, a more senior level that came with more responsibility, of which then came with a higher salary. And I was able to do that. And I was very fortunate I had that opportunity. But equally, I was then very firm that I was already doing it. So actually, it was then a requirement to kind of catch everything up in that sense. I've also been in the position where I asked for a sabbatical. In my corporate career. So an element of kind of flexible working, so to speak, a change to my ordinary working pattern. And I was absolutely petrified going into that conversation of asking for that sabbatical, because it was something that I'd never done before. It was something that was very personal to me. So I was going to spend that time working on gaining my coaching qualification. So it was about my own personal development and taking myself out of my ordinary, normal working pattern in order to focus in on something to benefit myself and my personal growth and development. And I can remember before I had that conversation, how I was going to prep for it, what my actual ask was, how I was going to approach it, how I was going to kind of lead into asking for it. I just totally overcomplicated it in my mind. And when I actually got to it, I remember kind of my line manager's reaction was just like really good and really simple, and was like, yeah, okay, fine, send me some more detail and I'll absolutely kind of consider it, have conversations with the right people, and we'll see where we get to. Like, and in my head, I kind of just thought they would immediately been kind of like archaically like, no, no, stop. You must remain here all the time for all the hours and days you are contracted for. And so I've been in that situation where that actually made me feel more wobbly, actually asking for something that I wanted, because I didn't have any proof point, any validation of something that had already happened around what the benefit of it was going to be. It was in the future. So it's an interesting one. And I think for me personally, where I know I can already talk about things that I've delivered or don't have demonstrable value related to that ask, I'm much more confident in having that conversation and being clear around what it is that I want and what I'm asking for. Where I don't have that, in that situation around the sabbatical, I found that more challenging. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting, dynamic at play. Interestingly, was when I was also reflecting and thinking about this for today, now I have my own business, I am a lot more confident around my asks and asking clients and customers for what it is that I want if we're in those types of conversations, because I think I'm more comfortable and a bit more assertive. Like, I'm not passive around where I bring value. And I think that's because I've done a lot of work, fortunately, on myself, but also in terms of my experience, my expertise, what I offer, etc. And I believe in that. And so again, I have found that not as challenging as when I was in the corporate environment and I was up against a lot of people probably having those conversations, but they were more visible to me. Whereas at the minute, when I work for myself, there probably are lots of other people having the same conversations, coaches, trainers, etc., but they aren't particularly visible to me in my day-to-day. So I kind of forget about them. So that makes me more assertive in my approach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think what you raise is a really good point there, which is in this whole conversation that we're having, you will put yourself in a much stronger position if you can already articulate the value you add, because you have already understood it and identified with it first. Because I think you there saying that you're clear about the value you bring, what you're offering, you can discuss that tangibly, therefore you can stand by then what you ask for. I think that can be true of any of us. That's true in a work context if you are in the corporate world, that actually if you're really clear about what your deliverables are and how you do that and what differentiates you, then you can value that and therefore then articulate it to other people. But it has to start with how you value yourself first. And I do think at times what stops a lot of us from asking for what we want is we haven't either necessarily thought about it clearly enough to be able to articulate it clearly and confidently, and potentially we're not necessarily giving ourselves the time to actually think about how we do value what we do. Because I do think sometimes when we're all in our flow and we're just doing what we do, we can become quite dismissive of how fantastic that actually is. We become a bit forgetful of actually all that skill that we're demonstrating. That is something to celebrate. That is something to be recognized. Just because we find it easy and we do it all the time, and it's like it's just a subconscious way of working. It becomes a habit for us. Doesn't mean it's any less valuable. So I think it's important to really make that connection with yourself and to honor it to yourself to enable you then to ask for it. Because I think of it in terms of when I've been able to be much more assertive in asking for what I want is when I am starting a job. So especially in that whole offer negotiation period, at that point, I actually never have any qualms about asking for the things that I want. And it's because I'm not associating it to anyone else. I'm making it about me. I'm going in, I don't know them. I don't know anyone else in that organization. I don't have comparison points like you mentioned, which I think is a really interesting one. It's just about me. And I think at that stage, I'm like, sod it. I have an opportunity here. I'm going into a brand new organization. This is how I value myself. I'm going to ask for that. And actually, I always add on about 10% extra as well, because I think, well, sod it, I've got a negotiation space. But also, I think what I always think of is that whole term, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Absolutely.
And I think that's true. If you don't ask, you don't get. And what's the worst thing that can happen at that point? They'll say no, they'll come in with a different offer. But at least you're having a conversation and you're putting yourself in control and you're leading with what you want. You know, God, if you've got the opportunity to do that, you should always take it. I think it's then interesting how potentially that dynamic changes once you're in an organization.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with what you said around actually, then you have got comparison points and then you are part of a bigger piece. And there are other people where potentially having that conversation and you suddenly become really acutely aware of everyone else. And I know that I start then at times using that as a way to talk myself out of it, rather than just going, who cares? Like, I'm still important. It's still about me. You know, it's a really interesting one, that is.
Yeah. And I think it's probably right for us as well to bring a different lens into the discussion at this point, because we don't want to take away from the fact that in order to have these conversations, especially in organizations, and you still can have these conversations if you work for a small to medium-sized business as well. But there has to be an element of psychological safety at play. You have to feel comfortable that you're going to be safe having these conversations and it's not going to be held against you. There's not going to be a penalty there. And so I think it's prudent at this point, we perhaps just touch upon some research that we found in this practice episode, which is from Forbes, which basically suggests that for a woman in the workplace, a person of color, or LGBTQ, people find doing this incredibly challenging due to the perceived risk of there being consequence to being clear around asking for what it is that you want. And I do think, certainly in my experience of being a woman in the workplace, and talking to male counterparts and colleagues in some instances, that they were a lot more assertive and a lot more confident in having these conversations, more naturally than I would have been. I still have them at various points in my career, as I've kind of mentioned, but probably maybe not quite as frequently in some instances as I should have. And I was aware of kind of tiptoeing around it, hoping that somebody would see what a great job I was doing, or how I think I should they should offer me a sabbatical to help me become a coach. Here it is on a plate, and here you go. And that is not the reality of a lot of workplaces. And I think, it's important that we kind of bring that lens into the conversation here.
There are, it would be the same for women, I think, people of colour, LGBTQ. There are already so many different various judgments and prejudices being juggled, that I think then being assertive and asking for what you want with that concern of that all being around you and that, as you said, that fear of consequence, I think that's all playing into there for sure. I also think, and this has come from listening a lot to Elizabeth Day's How to Fail podcast, and I know she's talked about it in her findings, is that from her experience, talking a lot to a real mixture of men and women of all different backgrounds, different, genders, even sexual preferences, there is a real acute difference around the fear of failure. That actually the men she's spoken to, and a lot more, it's a lot more common that they just don't have it. So there's not that fear there of, it becomes part of the learning. It's all part of, and actually they don't necessarily even have it in their mindset that they're going to fail. And even when things have gone wrong, they don't necessarily view it in that way. They don't get stuck there. And I do think, and I go back to this rejection piece, I think asking for what you want and then not getting it can then play into that realm of it was a failure. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. As I said, I don't think it's straightforward, and I do think it's very complicated. I think there's so many layers there, but it doesn't surprise me at all.
Absolutely. So let's kind of think then about what are the risks in not having these types of conversations, because it would be very easy and understandable, building on the conversation we've just had, around thinking, actually, I'm not going to ask for what it is that I want at work. As we've said, that doesn't necessarily have to be about money and a pay rise. That can be a change in working pattern. That can be help with a project or a particular piece of work. So yeah, what do you think some of the risks are in not addressing it?
Well, not to oversimplify it, but I mean, the most obvious one is that you don't get what you want. And I do think it comes back to what I said before, which is if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you're not clear about what your wants are, whether that's monetary, whether it's anything, actually, if you're not clear about that and you're not asking for it, other people, I don't think you can expect them to know that. Yeah. I don't think you can expect people to just assume that they understand what you're looking for. And let's be honest, I do think naturally as well, you're not going to be given more if people don't feel they have to give it to you, which I know might sound a bit of an odd thing to say, but at the end of the day, I think that's true. People aren't just going to shower you with extra stuff if they actually don't feel that they need to do that. So I think actually asking for what you want is so important, because actually you get what you want. You get to do what you want. That will help you to become more confident, more fulfilled. You'll be happier because you're feeling as though actually I'm going out, I'm in control, I'm taking accountability. All of that is so empowering. So that really helps you to strengthen, I think, your self-belief and your self-efficacy, which are all positives. And you're just getting more. I think if you don't do it, the risk is that you become resentful, you become disgruntled, you'll become frustrated. And I think, look, don't forget as well, the more that you're getting from every role that you do, and potentially in every organisation, the more you're setting yourself up to get more again the next time. Because I think it gives you that gradual growth. And once you're on that ladder, you can keep going. And that gives you that stepping stone for the next opportunity to ask for more again. Because as I always remind myself of in my own personal practice, my own coaching practice, every year I gain more experience. I get more learning. I do more potentially training at times, and I'm investing in myself every year. That means for me, every year I become more worthwhile. I become more of value. So therefore I can equate that to what I then charge myself out at to clients. It's the same as you change through your jobs and you go through your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the same with customers and clients as well, from that perspective. If you are in a conversation where you're trying to negotiate an extension on the deadline, or you're trying to put your rate up, or whatever it is, those principles that Lisa's just been through there in terms of the risks of not having that conversation still apply in that particular context and situation. And I think the piece you said there around you give up your control is absolutely spot on, because let's take it away from the work dynamic at the minute in the work situation, because you wouldn't go to the hairdressers, would you, and not ask for what you want? You wouldn't just sit in the chair. Well, I wouldn't, and go, no, just do whatever you fancy today. Like, you would absolutely go and tell them to an extent what it is that you're looking for today from that hairdressing appointment, whether that's a colour, a cut, etc., etc. You have a rough idea. And actually, if you don't do that, then you're giving up total control of the situation that you then find yourself in, and the outcome that is then generated once you leave that hairdressing appointment and you don't like your hair because you haven't clearly asked for what it is that you wanted. And people can't second guess. That hairdresser cannot second guess what is in your mind at that point and what it is that you're looking for, and also what you deserve as well. And also, if you are thinking about doing this and your line manager or the person you need to have the conversation with has more than one direct report, and again, this can be both for a small, medium business or a large organization, that's even harder. They're not going to have the capacity and the time, let's be real, to be sat there second guessing for everybody who's in their team what it is they should be offering to them. They just don't. That's just not the reality of the situation and of what's going to happen. So taking the ownership and taking control as much as you can, and being clear around that ask, what it is that you want and why that is, will help you kind of generate those next steps and hopefully that momentum in terms of getting what it is that you're looking for. So I appreciate that what we're talking about here is all massively underpinned by confidence, and we've kind of touched upon it in our conversation so far. But how do we gain the confidence to have this conversation and to ask for what it is we're looking for at work?
I think, and I've just been dwelling on this actually, is through what you were talking about there, and talking about putting ourselves in position of power and control. And do you know what? I think there is a massive stigma around this and for asking for what you want. And I do think it's a stigma that potentially does resonate more in females and those already slightly disadvantaged groups, I think, more so than potentially in the men groups. And I was thinking about, well, why is that? But there is a stigma around it. And I think there is an element of actually the stereotype of the fact that men are more assertive, men are more arrogant, and that being acceptable, and anyone else playing in those spaces, it's not. And so I think there is a stigma that's associated to this, which then holds some of us back because of the perception that it's okay for men to be like that, but it's not okay for others to be like that. Does that make sense? And actually, all of it's absolute bollocks. I mean, when it comes down to it, asking for what you want is okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's totally allowed. You're allowed to ask for what you want. You're allowed to look after yourself. You're allowed to do things to make your life better and easier. Actually, suffering is not a badge of honor. Like, why do we love to wallow in that? Like, I know that that's true, and I know it has been true of myself as well. So I'm not talking about this as though I don't do it. I do. But I think in terms of that confidence piece and for asking what we want, I think it is remembering that exact thing, that actually it is okay to ask for what you want. There is nothing wrong with that. It is actually the right thing to do, to put yourself in a position of power, to be in control, because that way you are only doing really all that you can to get the outcome you want. And that has surely got to be a better position than sitting on the fence and having your life being controlled by others and, getting bitter about it. So I think holding that in your head and thinking, do you know what? I'm okay to do this. It's allowed. I have every right. I think it comes back to that, which I thought was interesting, what you said. And it's definitely true of my experience, which is really thinking about planning out what exactly it is you're asking for, and thinking about actually, what am I asking for and what is my offer in return? Or to the example you gave, it could be that you're doing this retrospectively. So you're saying, well, this is what I'm offering you and this is what I'm doing. So this is what I want in return, and flipping it that way round. But I think actually, if you can do that, you're demonstrating we're in a partnership here. It's a two-way arrangement. I do this and I get this in back. And that's reasonable. That's fair, I think. And I think it's thinking about actually to help drive you around this is thinking about the consequences of not asking. Like, what is going to happen if you don't? Because would you rather stay there in that place? Or why don't you focus on what could happen by asking for it? And I think for me, that's where that confidence piece I think is built from. It's the preparation. And I think it's just holding some helpful thoughts that are productive in your head to keep you on that path. I think as a starting point anyway. And then really thinking about when you're planning, like what's the approach you're going to take, and language wise, really be that specific. How are you going to phrase this in a way that you feel really comfortable with, that gives you that confidence?
Yeah.
Because actually the way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk in general, completely can change the way that we feel and the way that we hold ourselves, which, can put you in a place of strength.
And also is authentic to you. We talked about that at the start of this episode. If you go in and you're not a particularly directive person, okay, and you're not maybe naturally assertive, and the people who work with you, the people you're having a conversation with, don't necessarily kind of see those attributes in terms of the way that you talk and the way you present yourself. If you suddenly go in and put an ultimatum in front of them, they're going to be like, what? Like, this is not the Lisa we knew. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not the Lisa we know and love and value, because I'm a bit confused, and that will take them away from what it is you're actually asking for. So you absolutely have to think about the approach that you take and how you plan and enter and intro that conversation, because actually if you nail that, it will then build momentum and it will flow. It will carry on from there. And I think the piece around asking for what you want is also really important, but also your shopping list. And we use this term in sales a lot. So yes, you absolutely need to be clear around what it is that you want, but also what's your shopping list in terms of the things that you will be able to compromise on as well, because then you'll feel more clear and you're more confident. If whoever it is that you're talking to comes back and says, well, we can't do this, but we can do this, you'll know how that fits in terms of your things that are important to you and what you're willing to compromise on, and the things that you're not, because they are what you hold dearest and what you value the most. So really thinking in your prep, not only about how you're going to approach the conversation, the clarity of your ask, but also what's my shopping list? What does it look like in terms of the things that I'm willing to compromise on, is also a really piece of important prep, I think, in getting ready for conversations such as this. And also, if you can, putting yourself in the other shoes of that person or people, if you're having a conversation with more than one person, what do you think about them? What are their needs? What are their wants? Try and anticipate from what you know about them, how they may respond, and hopefully respond, not react to the conversation, because then you'll be better prepared. You'll be forearmed in terms of how they then respond and react, and you'll feel more in control, and it won't take you by surprise as much, hopefully. When, that kind of happens, you're there and you think, I knew this was going to happen, and this is how I thought I was going to respond to it when this happened, and I'm still in control, because stuff absolutely can go a little bit off plan, but absolutely got this for sure. So top tips then for asking for what you want at work. What are your top tips, Lisa, on this particular one?
So I think my top tips for asking what you want at work is, step one, that point around, be clear in your mind that this is absolutely okay to do, that what you're doing is allowed, and it's about doing the right thing for yourself. So you're putting yourself in a position of control. So I really think it's that if you don't ask, you don't get, and there's nothing wrong with doing it. So that's got to be my first one, because there is the stigma around this is ridiculous, but we all make this so much worse for ourselves because that's what we think about. So that's number one. I think my other tip is do your planning. So really think about, what are you asking for and what are you offering in return? Or as we explained, you could flip that round the other way, which is, look, you're offering this, so because of that, what you'd like to ask is this. So I think it's doing your planning around that so that you're prepared for what you're going to say. So really think about then your approach and, as I said, the language you're going to use. And I think be comfortable that actually it fits in line with how you want to come across. so that you feel comfortable about what you're doing. So stay true to yourself and be confident in that approach. Don't try and do it like somebody else. Don't think you need to do, be too much of one. Don't be assertive. Don't be overly assertive. Don't be, do it in a way that you feel comfortable with, that's true to you, because you'll be more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And do not do it over email is my other top tip.
That is a great top tip. Yes.
Whatever you do
this personally.
Have a flipping conversation. I know it's going to maybe make you feel uncomfortable, okay? But it might work out. You might get what you want, but it's got an even better chance of working out if you do it face-to-face, either Zoom or, ideally face-to-face, but as a conversation. Do not construct what you want in an email, please, because emails gets misinterpreted. They can not be as clear as we want. The intention, it can be slightly misconstrued. So my final top tip is please, 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 please have a conversation.
Every other week, we share a question from one of our listeners, our CBBs, who have contacted us to help them with a problem. Today, we have a question from CBB Chris in Stockport, who has emailed this to us. So, Chris says, I recently went for a promotion at work, which I didn't get. I'm struggling with the rejection, feeling really embarrassed and wondering, how can I now be successful at work? Please, can you share your thoughts and tips with me? So firstly, sorry, Chris, that you didn't get the promotion. Can really feel the pain there. I know how disappointing it is. It's so tough, this situation. I know that we've both been there, haven't we, Suze?
We have.
So what would be your advice to Chris to help him in this current situation?
So the first thing I'd say, Chris, is here is a little virtual CBB hug for you. I'm kind of doing it now because I know I've been here. It is not nice. It's tough. Rejection, when we don't get things that we're hoping for and that we want, it hurts. It's a real blow. And actually, although it's a bit stingy at the minute, and that's fine for it to be, I would really encourage you to kind of feel those feels at the moment and kind of let those emotions in and really kind of don't block them or push them down. They're real, they're true to you at the minute, and they're really important that you acknowledge them. And for me, when I was in this situation, I'd say it took me a good kind of week or so before I was ready to start thinking about how I move forward, how I move on, what I've learned. So don't rush yourself is my main kind of suggestion here, is don't rush yourself. It's okay. Take a bit of time. And yeah, it's not the nicest of situations, and kind of just be okay with that. Lisa, have you got any thoughts?
I think, to build on that, what I would say is, look, you have nothing to be embarrassed about. You've put yourself in a challenging position. You've stretched yourself. You've taken a risk. You've made yourself vulnerable, and you should be proud of yourself for that. It's always challenging when you go for promotions inside an organization where you're established and people know you. You've got an audience, and that is tough to then fail, if you like, in front of an audience. But the point is that no successes ever came from sitting still and doing absolutely nothing. And all of our journey to success requires a couple of setbacks along the way. Failure is all part of that. Some of the most successful people in our society today experienced multiple failures before they got there. And I think it's being accepting of that. You should be proud of yourself for taking the challenge and trying to push yourself on. And that's nothing to be embarrassed about. I think it's important, as Susie said, to take some time, because I think when you're in this space of feeling quite exposed, uncomfortable, it's all very raw. It's important to just not be reactionary to that and to make decisions that actually are only true of how you feel right now, not necessarily how you're going to feel over a bit of time once you've processed it. So I think it's important to, as Susie says, just take the time and don't do anything rash. because I have seen people, not for me personally, but who then very quickly kind of made the decision, well, there's nothing here for me, so I'm off, and then come to regret that. So I think just, take the time, be steady. And then I think when you're ready is to start thinking about what you can learn from the experience, because I think there will be a lot of positives that you can take away from this that will help you to ensure that you get the promotion the next time. And I think that does involve getting feedback. You know, if you haven't already had the feedback from the process, get it, because actually it's important for you to get it so that you're learning and you're actually getting the true facts from the situation. Because I think when you get rejected, you immediately just feel pain and as though you're rubbish. But that's never true. And I'm sure there'll be lots of positives that will come out that will help you to feel confident about what you have done and some learning points for what you can do better next time. Either way, sorry that this has happened to you, but believe me, it will be part of your learning experience, part of that journey. We love that word, don't we, Susie, the journey. And it's all part of this story of yours to get the successful promotion next time. So if you have a question that you would like us to answer and have featured in this season of the Coaching Cast, you can get in touch with us by emailing hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or don't forget, you can always message us on Instagram @thecoachingcast.
It's now time for Bullshit Bingo, where we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace, which, quite frankly, make us cringe. Today's Bullshit Bingo is from a CBB who shared this gem with us on LinkedIn and is, ready? Alignment of synergies. Lisa, thoughts on this beauty?
Alignment of synergies. Isn't that like saying synergy?
I thought that when I read this one. I think it is, yeah. Unless
I don't understand synergy. which is quite probable. Alignment of synergies. Yeah, I just thought that was like saying the same word twice. Synergy. No?
Yeah.
Is that not the same thing?
Who knows?
Question. I don't know. I think I'm getting worse with these as time goes on.
But I do like this one because I think it is the same thing said in two different words. And also, again, who knows what this means? Like, where would you use this? Come on.
Synergies. Yeah, I've no idea. I've never used it. I don't even get it.
But we love your bullshit bingos.
Yeah, thanks CBB for sharing this one with us.
Crack us up. And this could be one that's on potential future merch.
Yes.
Who knows?
This could be a new sticker.
This could be new on some of our Coaching Cast merch. But whatever bullshit bingos you've got, remember, we love hearing from you with them. Make sure you get in touch. You can email us your bullshit bingos at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or you can message us on Instagram.
So we are coming to the end of today's episode, where we've been discussing how to ask for what you want at work, whether that's a pay rise, some help with a project, or asking a client for something that's important for you. So our tips and recommendations from today are, number one, remember, it's okay to ask for what you want. If you don't ask, you don't get. Number two, it's all in the planning and preparation. That will really help you with feeling confident about what you're asking for. So think about what those asks actually are and what your offers are in return. Think about the approach that you're going to take. Think about the language that you're going to use, and create that shopping list of all the things that you want and those things that are really important for you, your non-negotiables, so that you know when it comes to having that conversation, you can manage the responses and you know where you're going to move to. Third thing is do it face to face. So as Susie says, whatever you do not email it. Do it face to face. Put yourself in a position of real power and strength and make it personable. So don't worry about having to remember all of these tips. We will place them on our Instagram page for you this week, which is where they will always live. That's also where you'll find the tips from every episode of every season. They all sit on the grid, so they will be there for you to find.
We hope you enjoy today and have some new ideas to take away and try for yourselves. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. There are 3 ways you can contact us. You can email us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, DM us on Instagram at thecoachingcast, or get in touch through our brand new website, thecoachingcast.co.uk, where you can sign up for updates for new episodes and exclusive Coaching Cast content.
Your support means everything. Therefore, if you like what you've heard today and would like to help us grow this podcast, please do us a favour and follow us on Instagram, leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app, and subscribe to future episodes wherever you listen. Don't forget, you can also watch each episode on our YouTube channel by searching for The Coaching Cast. In next week's episode, we're continuing our discussion on inclusive leadership by talking about how to build a diverse team.
We both love music and use it to motivate and energize us as we go into our next meeting. So we like to finish each episode with our personal song recommendation to give you positivity and energy as you absolutely go into that next Zoom, Teams, or even face-to-face meeting. It's my choice this week, and I've chosen Feel the Love by Rudimental. Classic. Absolute classic. Thank you so much for listening, CBeebies. Have a great week. And remember, you've got this.